conservation series. Tuesdays are Let Us Help You, and today's topic is patio gardens. So patio gardens are a great way to grow healthy, fresh food for your family. They don't cost a lot, they don't require a lot of work, it's minimal maintenance, and it's just a win-win all the way around. So my gardening experience, I grew up gardening with my grandmother, who had this massive garden that she canned a ton of and shared with the whole family every year. So when I started my own family, I said, well, I'm just going to grow this big garden like my grandma did, and it's going to be awesome, and it's going to be so much fun. Long story short, it looked good for like a month, and then after that, it was a hot mess. It just was so much work, so much maintenance. I have 3 small children. We still harvested a lot of great food from it, but it did not look the greatest. I'm not going to lie to you guys. So this year, I am trying my hand at patio gardening. I am going to reuse some pots that we used for other things last year, and I'm going to let the kids help pick out the seeds, what we want to grow. I have a wonderful new patio at our new house, and I cannot wait to fill it up with yummy, yummy veggies. So what we're going to cover today is everything from selecting your seeds, to your containers, to what soil you should put in it, how to plant your seeds, and then maintenance thereafter. I apologize in advance for filming everything in selfie mode, but we're trying to stick to these quarantine rules and stay separate as a staff, so you guys are going to just have to bear with us, and I hope you enjoy our programming today. Okay, so first things first, let's talk seed selection. You can find seeds just about anywhere. They're going to be at your hardware store, your local farm store, or there are tons of online avenues that you can look into to get seeds shipped directly to your house. Now, when you start looking at seeds, one of the things that you're going to find is there are lots of different kinds of the same type of plant. So there are going to be plenty of varieties of lettuce, and usually they have a description whether it's sweet or bitter or crispy. The other thing that you'll find is there's 4 different options as far as what kind of seed you buy. So you'll have your hybrids, and your hybrids are when they take 2 parent plants and they cross-pollinate them in hopes that they get great characteristics from each parent plant blended into one future plant. So it may be the awesome flavor of parent plant number 1 and the great growth pattern of the parent plant number 2. So they blend those together in hopes that they get this one perfect plant. Hybrid seeds are great. You have a lot of varieties. They tend to be a little bit more hardy than your heirloom seed. However, it's kind of hit or miss. Sometimes you might have, if you cross-pollinated 2 pepper plants, you may have all red pepper plants, or some of them may be red and green. It's not always super consistent what you end up with, but still a great option nonetheless. The second kind, which I mentioned just a second ago, was your heirloom seed. So heirloom seed is exactly how it sounds. It's a plant that has been around for years and years and years, generation after generation. And that plant is proven to perform the same way every time that seed is planted. So it always has great tasting fruit, the same growth pattern. You can guarantee that whatever you plant, heirloom, it's going to be a constant. It'll be the same every time you plant it. However, there is some debate as to whether they are as hardy and as disease resistant as some of the hybrids out there, but still another great option. The third kind that we're going to talk about are your GMOs. Now, there are a lot of negative PR about GMOs, but I encourage you to do your own research. I personally don't think they're quite as bad as everyone makes them out to be. It is formed through an unnatural process. However, it still yields a great plant with great fruit. So I encourage you to do your research, buy whatever you're comfortable with. And then the last type of seed that we're going to talk about is organic. So with organic seed, that seed was produced using a set of practices that involve no chemical elements. So they're not going to use your traditional glyphosate to manage weeds or pesticides for pests. That seed was manufactured, for lack of a better term, in all natural conditions. So that's not to say they didn't manage it in some way, but they used natural methods to do so. One thing I want to point out is a lot of people confuse heirloom with organic. So heirloom seeds are seeds that were pollinated naturally, so they are natural from that standpoint, but that does not guarantee that they're organic. Organic seeds are grown using that set of organic standards. Heirloom seeds, you can still use pesticides. They can still use glyphosate. All of those things are still fair game when it comes to heirloom seed. So if organic is something that's really important to you, make sure you read the labels and you know what you're buying. So now I just want to talk a little bit about cold season versus warm season. So right now here in southern Indiana, it's starting to warm up a little bit, but it's not consistently warm. We're still getting those cool nights. So whatever I plant now, if I'm going to have it in the outdoor environment, I need to make sure that it's a vegetable that can handle these temperatures, or herb, or whatever I choose to plant. I just need to make sure that it can handle the coolness and maybe even a light frost. So there are something called cold season vegetables, and those are vegetables that thrive in this cooler weather. Now, if it was going to get down below freezing and be a very hard frost, I would recommend that you bring those vegetables in just to make sure that all your hard work doesn't go to waste because of one stinky old frost. But for the most part, generally speaking, they can tolerate those cooler temperatures. So if you pick out your vegetable like broccoli, kale, lettuce, spinach, radishes, all of those do really well in these cooler temperatures. So what I brought today is I've got some broccoli, I've got some lettuces, I have something new that I'm really excited about called a seed disc. I have never tried these before. I can't wait to show it to you guys. I planted them Saturday, so we'll see how it does. Was this seed disc that I mentioned earlier. I had never seen this before. I had no idea what it was, but the drawings on the packet seemed to me like it would be a pretty easy option, especially for container gardens. So when I opened these up, I found that they come in a circle here. So you can see the seeds are already in this fabric. It feels just like a coffee filter, and it is about 12 inches in diameter. So if you have a 12-inch pot, this works perfectly. All I have to do is just lay it in there. I sprinkle a little bit of dirt over it, water it down, and bam, I've got a whole pot full of lettuce in just a few days. So I encourage you to continue to find easy options like this. You're guaranteed good spacing. Talk a little bit about the seeds themselves. So you've selected your variety, and let's just say this spinach, for example, is what we're going to use. The back of this seed packet is like your seed mini Bible. So it tells you everything you need to know to be successful growing this plant. Well, maybe not everything, but for the most part, everything you need to know about successfully germinating this seed, how you should feed it, what its sun requirements are. All of those are really, really, really important. The other cool thing is, and I'll show you guys a close-up of this in a second, is down on most seed packets now, they have a container-friendly option. So if you're growing this seed in a container versus a traditional garden, your spacing might be a little bit different. So now they have taken the guesswork out of that for you, and it is now available on the seed packet. Okay, so the last thing we want to look at when it comes to seeds is the back of our seed packet. So you can see in the column to the right over here, it has all the important information. It has the sunlight requirements, and for this particular plant, it is about 6 hours. The days to harvest, the depth it needs to be planted, how far apart your sprouts should be when you start to thin. Thinning is an important part of making sure you get a healthy plant. You want to go by that guideline of 6 inches for this particular plant. The other cool thing is the container friendly section. This one recommends 7 plants per 12-inch container. It takes the guesswork out of how many you should be growing in one pot. And the last really important part is the outdoor sowing map out here. So it says that seeds should be sown for my area between March and May, and then you can sow them again in August to September. So my pots will be outdoors, so I am right on time to get these babies planted. There is another description up here. It just kind of spells out what was on the right-hand column a little bit more in depth. But it's really important you guys consult the back of the seed packet before you start planting. Let's talk containers. So I've got several different kinds out here that I am using this year. I've got my 5-gallon buckets here. These are great. There's 2 of them stacked together, but they are awesome for tomatoes, deep-rooted vegetables, things like potatoes, carrots. All of those will do really well in a 5-gallon bucket because they'll be able to get that root depth that they need. I've got some 12-inch pots that I got here from the local dollar store. They are very lightweight plastic. I think they look pretty cute, but they only cost me $5 or $6, I think, really reasonably priced. I've also got 2 smaller self-watering pots. So if you see this little lip right here, this actually, you put water in the bottom, it holds it in there, and it will allow the soil to take it up as it needs it. So I will still have to water this, but just not as frequently as I might have to water these back here. I also have a small bucket here that just come from the local hardware store. I also have a pot here that came from last season and had a fern in it on the patio. So if you're going to use a recycled pot, make sure you clean out, obviously, your plant from last year. And then you might want to fertilize it just a little bit more or put fresh potting soil in it, because the nutrients from that soil are probably going to be a little bit more depleted because it had a plant growing in it last season. If you choose to use a bucket, like one of these or the 5-gallon bucket, make sure that you drill some holes in the bottom of it. Your plant is going to need that drainage. If you do not have holes in the bottom of your container and you accidentally overwater or get a heavy rain, that water is just going to sit in the bottom of that bucket and it will probably rot the roots of your plants, which is not what you want. So these 4 right here I have already planted. And these 2, I have gravel in the bottom. That is also just to help promote drainage. It keeps that soil from plugging the holes in the bottom. But if it's a pot you plan to move in and out of your patio and into the house if the weather's still a little iffy, you can use something lighter like old plastic bottles to put in the bottom of that. Just kind of lay them down flat side by side. It will make your pot a little bit lighter than if you use gravel but accomplish the same purpose. You also want to make sure that you get a good quality potting soil. That's what's going to give your vegetable the nutrients. They are going to pull all of those from the soil. So whatever you put in it is what's going to end up going into the fruit that you take off of that. Another important tip is to make sure that when you fill your pots up, you leave an inch or 2 at the top of the pot. That way when you're watering, the water can sit in there and absorb down into the soil. If you have it filled up to the brim, if you water, it's likely that it's just going to run over the top instead of infiltrating down into the soil. And unfortunately, when it runs off, it's just going to take some of that soil with it. Maybe even your seeds. So you just want to be very careful and make sure you leave that space at the top for watering. These are already planted. This one I planted the lettuce disc in it. I'm really excited to see how this one turns out. This one I've got some spinach growing in it, and it's been outside all day in the sun since we've had such nice weather today. So it looks like this top layer is starting to dry out a little bit. There's still some moisture down underneath of it. You can see as I move it away it's a little bit darker, but I'm definitely going to need to water this at the end of the day today. And here are the herbs that are going to be sitting in my windowsill. The other container that I did not mention yet is recycled containers. So I'll try to share some of those pictures with you guys, but if you have old plastic containers, pots and pans, bowls, or even wood planters that you create yourself. Those all work really well. Let the kids decorate them and have some fun with it. If you would like a list of all the vegetables that you can plant right now during this cooler weather, send us a message or post it in the comments. We'll be happy to give you more information on what you can plant right now. There is an option to start seeds indoors, which we'll talk a little bit more about next week. So thanks for tuning in today on Let Us Help You Tuesdays. I hope you guys got a lot of valuable information on patio gardens. If you guys plan to start one, please share pictures in the comments below. We would love to see what you're working on. If you have questions or want more information on this topic or anything garden related, feel free to send us a message or post in the comments below. We are happy to help. This is what we love to do, and it gives us something to do during this quarantine time. I also hope that you guys will involve your families in this. Get your kids going, decide as a family what you want to plant, and just have fun with it. If you are not having fun, then you are not doing it right. So join us next week to talk about starting seeds indoors for those warm season vegetables that will be coming upon us ever so quickly. We hope to see you back next time.